Today's lesson is on plagiarism. Plagiarism is where you knowingly take someone else's work and you use it as your own. You pass it off as your own. So let's take some examples. Let's look at some examples of passages and decide whether they are plagiarism or not. Okay, our original passage says, at the start of the Great Depression, many Americans wanted to believe that the hard times would only be temporary. Is this plagiarism or not? At the beginning of the Great Depression, a lot of Americans wanted to think that the hard times would only be temporary. If you said this is plagiarism, you're correct. A lot of people think that it's okay just to change a couple of words and let that be the change, but it's not enough. You have to change more than just that. Right here, we only changed beginning, we changed a lot, and we changed think. That's not enough. You're using somebody else's work and claiming it as your own. Our next passage says, devices in the iPod range are primarily digital audio players designed around a central click wheel, although the iPod Shuffle has buttons also. Is it plagiarism if you say, an iPod is an MP3 player that lets you choose and play songs to listen to using a click wheel, or in older versions, buttons? If you said this is not plagiarism, you're correct. You're taking the information from the first passage and you are using it in a different way. The entire sentence is completely different. That is not plagiarism. Okay, our original passage here is, a letter of thanks is a courteous acknowledgement of a gift or of something that was done for you. Is this plagiarism? A thank you note is a polite acknowledgement of a present or something nice someone did for you. If you said this is plagiarism, you're correct. It's still the same passage. You cannot use it in the same way. Now let's talk about researching. When you start researching, it's critical as you are looking through the various sources that you gather that you are putting where you got the information from. Making sure that you cite your sources is very important when it comes to writing research papers or doing projects. All of our projects in this class that require citations need to be in MLA format. You need to use works cited at the end of your project or attached to your project to show the various sources that you used, as well as within your document or project, you're going to need to have parenthetical citations. So let's go over those two items. Parenthetical citations are in-text citations, letting people know where you got the information from so that they can go to the works cited page and find the specific source. You need to use parenthetical citations whenever you are quoting any words that are not your own. You'll also need to use parenthetical citations whenever you're summarizing or paraphrasing from a source. Summarizing means you're taking the ideas from a large passage of another source and condensing them using your own words. You still need to give credit to the person who came up with that idea, so you need to have a parenthetical citation. And if you're paraphrasing, you're still using somebody else's ideas. You're just changing it into your own words. That still belongs to somebody else. You need to cite it. So how do you actually do these citations? Well, you need to have the author's last name first, and then you need to have the page number. So let me give you an example. If the author's name is Wordsworth and you got the information from page 263, your parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence would be Wordsworth 263 and end your parentheses there. Now let's say that you have several sources, several things from Wordsworth that you got in a row. Well, you wouldn't write Wordsworth again. The very next one would be 263 only. You just put the page number. Now this is not just anywhere in the document. This is if they are back-to-back citations. If you have to go to talking about another source, you'll need to put the author's last name again. Now what if there isn't an author's name? What do you do? When you don't have an author for a source, it's usually maybe something that you found online and there's a title available. So within your parenthetical citation, you are going to write a shortened version of the title itself and the page number. Now, what if there's an author, but there's no page number? For this, you're just going to put the author's name. So if the author's last name is Poland, you would just put Poland. Make sure you avoid plagiarism by not copying sentences or paragraphs. Do record your facts in bulleted form and make sure you put down what source you got that from. And then don't forget to include page numbers if there's page numbers available. Changing a few words is still plagiarism. Do not do that. Okay, now we're moving on to talking about what a works cited page is. And do you have to have one? Well, the answer is yes. You have to have a works cited page for everything, even with your parenthetical citations. Parenthetical citations only point you to the works cited so that a source can be found. You have to have a works cited page. A works cited page is a list of references that you use when gathering information for your paper. You have to put who the source is, who wrote the source, where the source was located. Was it a book, a magazine, a website? You have to cite your sources. That says that you are giving recognition that you got that information from a source. Even if you only use one quote, you still have to cite that source. If you use a picture from a website, you have to cite that source. You have to give credit to the original author of the original piece. That's the only way to go, else it's plagiarism. So make sure you're taking care of that. You have to be able to support your writing through those works. It's easy to maintain a works cited list if you keep track of the resources as you go. Your works cited page needs to be in MLA format. It needs to be alphabetized. You need to type your sources in a form of a list, and you need to use a hanging indent for each source. So let's talk about what a hanging indent is, because this is one of the things I see most students missing when they're doing their works cited page, and they end up losing points because of this small little indent. A hanging indent is when the second line of your resource is indented. So the first line is going to be out here. It's going to be just like normal. But when you move on to the second line has to start in a little bit. If you have a third line, it starts with the second line. They do not line up over here. The second and third line are shorter. You can easily do this with Microsoft Word if you're using Microsoft Word. We'll have to look at that in class on how you do it, but it's very easy. And you can also Google how to make a hanging indent with Microsoft Word with no problem. Here's an example of a hanging indent. You'll notice McAllister starts way out here, but the rest are indented down at the bottom. They do not meet up with the first line. They are shorter. This is a hanging indent. If on your works cited you do not have this hanging indent, you will lose points on your culminating activities and other projects for the works cited page, for the references. Okay, so where do we start when it comes to works cited? The first thing you need to have on the top of your paper, works cited, make sure you capitalize the W and the C for your works cited page. Don't forget to capitalize the names of authors and alphabetize your sources by author. It needs to be in alphabetical order. Your citations are super important. There are various online resources you can use to help you format your sources on your works cited into MLA format that you can use. But don't rely strictly on those. Make sure it is coming out right. Everything has to be sourced. I would rather see you have too many parenthetical citations and too many works cited sources than not enough.